Hey everybody, welcome back to Phoenix Kitchen. Today we're going to be making thick, delicious clam chowder, New England style. We're going to have it with some toasted cheddar bay croutons, serve it up in a toasted bread bowl. I'm your host, Stacy Williams, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Here we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and cover some quick basics while we start chopping up vegetables. We're making New England clam chowder. Now, Phoenix Kitchen is located in Tennessee. We are nowhere near the coast, and getting fresh clams at our local grocery where they think that the seafood department is simply salmon and catfish just doesn't happen. So we are going to do a version where we use canned clams and bottled clam juice. Ideally, we would want to start out with about 10 pounds of clams, rinse those, scrub them, and then go ahead and get them all into some boiling water, seasoned up, and let those things open up, pull them out, save our juice, and start that way. I'm going to put that into the recipe in the description down below so you can see how to do it if you're in a location where you can get fresh clams. But for today, we're doing the quick and easy version using canned. Now, first thing that we're going to do is go ahead and get all of our vegetables chopped up. There's a lot of chopping involved for clam chowder. So right now, I'm working on leeks in the video. If you're not familiar with leeks, they look like very large green onions. They taste sort of like green onions, a little bit sweeter. We're going to discard the dark green part. I don't use them for this recipe. You can save it and use it for other things, but we're going to use just the white and the light green. We cut off the ends, we slice them in half, and then we rinse them again, and we rinse them again. Leeks are one of the dirtiest things you can buy. They get gritty, nasty stuff down inside of them. You want to wash them out. They're worse than celery about holding dirt. So once you've got them completely washed, we're going to bring them over, we're going to slice them up finely, and we're going to put them in a bowl to the side. And we're going to go ahead and chop things like our onion, our potatoes, our celery, and our bacon. So we'll get this all chopped up and come back in a minute. All right, with everything chopped up, it's time to start cooking. I'm going to go ahead and go with a nice large stock pot, and I'm going to put in the 6 slices of bacon that we've sliced up. We're going to let that render down, and once it's cooked down and gotten a little crispy and all of that fat has melted beautifully, I'm going to go ahead and remove almost all of that bacon fat. I want to leave about 2 teaspoons for us to cook and wilt our vegetables in. Okay, if we leave all of it, we'll end up with a very oily soup, and that's just not what we're looking for. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put this over a medium heat and let these things start cooking down. All right, so the bacon's rendered down, and we've dumped most of the grease. We didn't dump it. You never dump bacon grease. You can always use it for something else, but it's been removed from the pan. All right, so what we're going to add to the pan now are all those nice green vegetables that we chopped up, along with 4 tablespoons of butter. because butter makes everything, right? So we just go ahead and drop that butter in, go ahead and drop all these vegetables in. Now, we always want to remember my golden rule. This stuff was not seasoned in the garden. It was not seasoned at the store. So we're going to go ahead and add our salt and pepper so that this can start to cook properly. In addition to the salt and pepper, which is basic that we should be adding to anything cooking, we're also going to go ahead at this time and add our minced garlic and our thyme. We'll give it a stir and let these vegetables cook until they're wilted. We don't want them to brown. We're not trying to saute them. We're not trying to caramelize them. We just want them to be wilty and soft. All right, so the vegetables have wilted down. Now we're going to go ahead and add our potatoes. Now you'll notice I've got these potatoes in water. We did that to keep them from turning brown, and we're going to need water anyway. As these things have set in water, some of the starch will start to wash off and separate from the potatoes. I want that starch to go in because it's going to help to thicken our chowder. As a matter of fact, once we've finished this and we want to thicken it up any, we're just going to mash some of those potatoes against the side of the pan, and that'll release more starch and cause it to thicken up without having to add cornstarch or anything. So I've opened up my cans of clam, and I'm going ahead and adding the juice from the cans, and we're using 3 cans for this recipe. And we're also going to add 3 bottles of clam juice. If you've never done this before and you're not familiar with it, in most supermarkets they keep it on the same aisle with tuna. Okay, so that's where you should be able to find it. We're going to add this. We're going to crank up the heat, bring this to a boil, and let it go for about 15 to 20 minutes until our potatoes are nice and fork tender. One thing that I forgot to do when I added those potatoes, but luckily I remembered before we got too far along, was to add bay leaves. Very important, right? So I'm dropping in 3 bay leaves. I'm going to let those cook, and then I'm actually writing myself a note to remove the bay leaves before I add the heavy whipping cream. I've made that mistake in the past. Once you add that heavy whipping cream, it becomes very difficult to see into the soup, and therefore very difficult to actually pick out and find your bay leaves. So I always make sure that I remove those before I add the cream. All right, so while we're letting those potatoes cook and get soft and bring everything together flavor-wise, we're going to go ahead and start to work on our bread bowl. I've got my oven preheated to 425 degrees. Now, I didn't get fancy this time. I did not make this bread bowl. I picked them up at my local supermarket out of the bakery section. We're going to go ahead and just cut the top off of this. This is an Italian bread bowl. My favorite is sourdough, but they didn't have any sourdough in stock when I ran to the store. So any bread bowl will work, but sourdough and clam chowder just have a way of going together that is absolutely amazing. So I highly recommend it if you can find them in your area. So I'm going to cut out the center. You got to be very careful as you're cutting out the center. You do not want to poke through the bottom of the bowl, because then it's not going to hold the clam chowder. So once I've gone around and got it cut, I'm just going to use my hand to pull that out. We're going to take this middle section and we're going to cut it into small cubes. We're going to make croutons out of the middle section. All right, so I'm just going to cut this into some small cubes. It doesn't have to be pretty. You could even just tear it apart if you wanted to. Does not matter. You just want to get some small shaped croutons. We're going to douse these with olive oil and Old Bay seasoning. We're going to pop them into that 425 degree oven along with the bread bowl, which I'll also do with olive oil and Old Bay seasoning, a little cheddar cheese, and we're going to let these things toast. Now I'll go ahead and tell you from my experience cooking this today, you do not want it to go for 10 minutes. Those croutons will be disgusting, and you'll have to do like I did and start over with new croutons. Cook them for about 7 minutes, and that'll get you that nice, beautiful golden brown look that you'll see here at the end of the video. All right, so while our bread is in the oven getting nice and toasty, we're going to check back in on the soup. You can see that we are boiling nicely. We're going to check these potatoes, make sure that they're fork tender. If they are tender enough, we're going to go ahead and remove the bay leaves, and we're going to add the cream. All right, so you had to fish around a little bit for your bay leaves. There we go. There's one. There's another big one. So we'll get all of those out. We'll add the cream. Once we've added the cream and let it come back to temperature, we're going to taste it. We're going to make sure that we've seasoned properly. Remember, we've added this cream, we've added unsalted butter, we've added the water from the potatoes, all of that since the last time we added any salt and pepper. So we want to find out, do we have enough? I don't want it to be over salty, because keep in mind your clam juice and your clams are going to be a little bit salty, a little briny, because they are a seafood. So we're going to bring it up, we're going to taste it, make sure everything's okay, and if it is, we're going to go ahead and add in the clams. The clams are already cooked. All we want to do is bring them up to temperature in the soup. They're the last thing that goes in. Alright, so I gave it a little taste. Doesn't have quite enough salt and pepper in it. It's good, but it doesn't have the punch that we need. So we're going to go ahead and add a little more. Just a nice pinch there. Get that stirred in. We want to be careful, go a little at a time. Taste it again. We don't want to over season it. So we get that stirred in and let it come up to temp. Let everything combine and get really, really happy. Alright, so once we've seasoned it, we've tasted it, we've made sure everything is okay. All we do is give it a chance to thicken, and then we're going to serve it inside that bread bowl. It's an absolutely show-stopping piece when you set that in front of someone. And we're going to go ahead and load that up with our cheddar bay croutons that we toasted. We're going to add a little extra cheddar cheese on top. I'm going to add a few chives, just for fun. And then we'll actually go ahead and just close this thing up with our top. Absolutely amazing. One thing that I did remember and do, you didn't see in the video because I thought of it at the last second. I gave it an extra sprinkle of Old Bay across the top after we added the cheese. This recipe is absolutely delicious. I hope that you'll give it a try. It is amazingly better with fresh clams if you can get them. So I hope that you'll be able to get some and try it that way. If not, working with these out of a can will still give you an extremely delicious product. Guarantee you're going to like this recipe. So thank you for joining us today. Make sure to join us again next time. We're giving away a 5-piece cast iron lodge cookware set when we hit 1,000 subscribers. All you have to do is like a video and subscribe to the channel to be entered in the giveaway.